very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I understand you folks have been meeting for quite a while, and I really appreciate you sticking around for me to show up. I am really pleased to speak with 7th District Republicans and the wonderful representatives of the Women's Federation who are here. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming and letting me say thank you for all the help that was given to me in the February 15th primary. It certainly was invaluable, and it helped me get 55% of the vote. Now, to come to the point, circumstances have changed. Circumstances have changed dramatically since the April 15th primary. There appears to be some controversy in the state. And I think as a result of that controversy, we may see 4 times as many voters turn out as turned out on February 15th. Now, if 4 times as many voters turn out as turned out in the primary, it may be necessary for right-thinking citizens to really work 4 times as hard as they did before if we're going to get the same result. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to ask your help and help the rest of the people of Wisconsin understand how critically important this election is. This election is already on the national radar screen. This election is being watched by people all over America. And the plain truth of the matter is, it is good, concerned citizens like you who can determine the result of this race. What we cannot afford to do is to allow any favorable potential voter to stay at home, to sit at home, and forget to vote on April 5th. And that's how I need your help. Now, let me try to talk about the importance of this election. I'm reminded of a cartoon that I saw when I was a young man. I was born in Chicago, and we moved to Wisconsin. We escaped to Wisconsin when I was 5. We escaped to Wisconsin when I was 5. But my parents, and particularly my grandmother, who came with us, wanted to retain a little Chicago tie, and so for years and years we subscribed to the Chicago Tribune, which in those days, it was a much more conservative paper than it is today. And during that period, even as a young child, I remember having brought to my attention a quite dramatic political cartoon. This was a cartoon of a man holding a gun, a cartoon of a ferocious wild animal charging toward the man. So the man holding the gun is aiming his rifle at the animal that is about to devour him. And the man holding the gun was labeled voter. And the caption on the cartoon was, "Only one shot. Better make it good." Well, voters only have one shot now in determining who is going to be a justice on the Supreme Court for the next 10 years. They have only one shot to determine the whole direction of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And they better make that shot good. Simple as that. The Supreme Court of Wisconsin has enormous, enormous power. And the election for a Supreme Court justice is very serious business. I would ask you and ask you to enlighten others about my qualifications and the qualifications of my opponent. You want somebody on the Supreme Court who has a little bit going for him or her, a person with a little stature, a person with a little bit of accumulated wisdom. Now, my experience goes back a long way. I have taught law in 2 different law schools. I worked in the United States Department of Justice, in the Office of Criminal Justice, making criminal justice policy for the federal government. I served as the Outagamie County District Attorney, the elected position, and I prosecuted street crime. Everything from arson, violent crime, to domestic abuse. And I was one of the first people, or first prosecutors in Wisconsin to devote a lot of time to prosecuting domestic abuse. I served 18 years in the Wisconsin legislature, 10 years in a leadership position, 2 years as Assembly Speaker. And we passed a lot of good legislation during that 2-year period. I served for 20 months on the Tax Appeals Commission. And often I sided in favor of the taxpayers, I want to say. But that's the state's highest tax court, and it is a quasi-judicial position. And I've served 12 and a half years on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, participating in more than 900 published decisions, writing 132 majority opinions. Now, over a long lifetime, I have been incredibly privileged to be in a position to make a lot of very important decisions affecting people's lives, liberties, and property. And if I had done a really bad job, I think you would have heard about it before now. Suddenly, I have become just a public enemy. And so the whole accumulated record of all those years in public service is now kind of being pushed aside. Now, my opponent does not have that kind of record. She has never been a judge. She has never been a legislator. She has never held an elected public office. She's never run for public office. I can tell you this. 3 times she applied for an appointment as a judge, and 3 times she was turned down. She was turned down, I think, by people who knew her well because she was not qualified, either by experience or temperament, and because her views were so far out of the mainstream of Wisconsin political thought. Now, I say to you, my friends, if Jim Doyle won't appoint her to a judgeship, if Barack Obama won't appoint her to a judgeship, then why should the people of Wisconsin put her on the Wisconsin Supreme Court for the next 10 years? That's going to be a tough question for her to answer. Okay, now I have some wonderful support from law enforcement. I think it relates a little bit to my background, but it also relates to my performance on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I'm supported by an awful lot of sheriffs and district attorneys and the Milwaukee Police Association. Now, my opponent doesn't have that kind of support. She's envious of that kind of support. But she wants to convey the impression that she's really a strong person on crime. She always uses the word prosecutor whenever she describes herself. But she does not tell you who she prosecutes or what she prosecutes. And so I'll do that for her, okay? My opponent prosecutes businesses and small municipalities and individuals such as dock owners for violations of DNR regulations. That's all she does, and that is all that she has done for the last 22 years. Now, I know she's very concerned about docks. She's very concerned about the length of docks and the width of docks and how many slips there are at the docks and whether some people should have docks at all. Now, I don't mean to minimize the importance of environmental enforcement, but this kind of background is not the ideal background to serve on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I think you want a little bit broader breadth of experience than that. Now, I've talked with some of the people who've worked with my opponent in court, and they tell me that she's not the easiest person to work with, that she has never met a DNR regulation that she didn't like. And I know from personal experience, because we had a case in the Wisconsin Supreme Court that she argued very, very vigorously that some people that she has sued in court for environmental regulations should not be afforded the right to a jury trial. And I have to tell you that she won that case. She won that case, and I will sort of breach the confidence of our Supreme Court conference room. Some people inside that room said, you know, we really cannot turn over environmental regulation judgments to the people. I'm being literal. I'm telling you exactly what happened. Some people don't trust the people to be a buffer between the government and individual defendants. Now let me close by saying, and this is my third point, I have a political background, and I have a clear judicial philosophy. And that philosophy is that there are real limits on what courts ought to do. They should not legislate from the bench. They should respect the policy made by other branches of government. My opponent also has political affiliations and political views and a judicial philosophy, but she tries to hide them. She tries to hide them from the people and hope that they will not notice. My opponent is truly and literally a far-left ideologue. That's the only person my opponents could find to run against me. My opponent has supported candidates and principles of the Green Party. I want you to understand what that means. In supporting a candidate for the Green Party last November on the west and south side of Madison, my opponent thought that a liberal Democratic candidate was too conservative. That's what we're facing on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I don't think the people of Wisconsin know that. I don't think they know what the stakes are, and I'm asking you to help tell that story. Candidates who do not level with the people about their credentials and about their views do not deserve a 10-year term on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I said this before, the Supreme Court has enormous power to affect life in Wisconsin, to affect public safety, to affect the economic climate, taxation, personal liberty, limitations on government. There are some justices on the court and some candidates for judicial office who want to protect big government from the people. I have a different view. I want to protect the people from big government. Now, my friends, I can have no complaint if this election is about my record of performance in office, either on the court or going further back in time. I'm proud of my record. I'm prepared to defend my record anytime, any place, and I hope that you're proud of it too. This election should not be turned into a referendum about disputes that might someday come before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We don't hold Supreme Court elections in order to determine how people are going to vote, what the outcome is going to be before the cases are ever argued. We hold Supreme Court elections to select judges who will serve fairly and impartially for a term of 10 years. To do otherwise, to politicize the court in the way that is being politicized now, is really going to destroy judicial independence in our state, and it's going to turn the Supreme Court into a very dangerous third legislative branch. I'm asking you not to let that happen. I come before you today appealing to your highest idealism of what you want your government to be in this state, and in the direction you want your government and your courts to go. The nation is watching. I need your help, and I'm very grateful for what you've given me so far and for your attention this afternoon. Thanks a million. Thank you.